The following podcast by Fusion Family Wealth, LLC, Fusion, is intended for general information purposes only. No portion of the podcast serves as the receipt of or as a substitute for personalized investment advice from Fusion or any other investment professional of your choosing. Please see additional important disclosure at the end of this podcast. A copy of Fusion's current written disclosure brochure discussing our advisory services and fees is available upon request or at www.fusionfamilywealth.com.
Welcome to another episode of the Fix It Friday edition of the Crazy Wealthy Podcast. Today I'm going to talk about something that is often misunderstood, which is why smart people seem to make consistently bad decisions with money under conditions of uncertainty. So there's a reason for this, and it has nothing to do with whether or not they're smart. It has something to do with something much more dangerous, which is our behaviors.
Welcome to the Crazy Wealthy Podcast with your host, Jonathan Blau. Whether you're just starting out or are an experienced investor, join Jonathan as he seeks to illuminate and demystify the complexities of making consistently rational financial decisions under conditions of uncertainty. He'll chat with professionals from the advice world, entrepreneurs, executives, and more to share fresh perspectives on making sound decisions that maximize your wealth. And now, here's your host.
Today, I want to fix something that quietly causes good investors to make bad decisions, especially during uncertain environments. And when I say uncertain, uncertainty is always present. What I mean is to say is perceived uncertainty. The greater the perceived uncertainty, the worse our decision-making with financial issues tends to be. So the difference between how we think we make decisions and how we actually behave when money feels at risk. Here's a simple truth. When investors feel like they're winning, they avoid risk. When they feel like they're losing, they actually seek out risk. Sounds counterintuitive and backwards, but let's get into it a little bit. That's how we're wired. So how we think we decide. Most of us like to believe we're calm and logical, that if we look at two reasonable choices, we'll pick the one that makes the most sense and stick with it regardless of what markets are doing at the time. In a spreadsheet, that may be true. In real life, not true at all. Here's how we actually decide. Here's what behavioral research shows and what I see constantly with real people and real money. Losses hurt much more than gains feel good. In fact, what research has proven is we feel the pain of a loss 2.5 times greater than we feel the pleasure of an equivalent gain is pleasurable. So our behavior flips depending upon how we feel in the moment. Let's take a look at a clear example, what I call the risk flip. When investors are up, imagine your portfolio is comfortably ahead. You're feeling great, and now markets get wobbly because of everything going on in the short term. Most investors say, I don't want to mess this up. I don't want to lose my gains. I should protect what I've made. So they become more cautious, and even long-term logic says staying invested makes sense. That's risk-averse behavior while winning. When investors are down, we flip the situation. Their portfolio is below where it was. That loss feels personal because they didn't do anything to prevent it. And many people will now say, I need to get this back. I'll take a shot if it gets me back to even. Now they're willing to take more risk than they normally would, often at exactly the wrong times. That's risk-seeking behavior while losing. Same person, same intelligence, but completely different behavior just because we're looking at a loss case in one situation and a gain case in the other, and human beings prioritize avoiding loss more than making gain or making money. And simply what's changed is the emotional starting point. That's not someone being stupid, that's being human. So why does this matter in markets? Markets don't just test portfolios, they test behaviors. There's no clear timelines. There's constant noise, and uncertainty never gives us closure. So most investing mistakes don't come from bad analysis. They come from bad moments when fear, regret, or urgency override patience and lead us to poor behaviors. That's when people sell after losses, chase risky ideas to try and make their money back, or abandon solid plans at the worst possible time in response to economic news or short-term market fluctuations. So what's the fix? Fix is let's plan for humans, not for robots. At Fusion, we don't build plans that assume perfect decisions. We assume people will feel fear, stress, and doubt because they're human. So we build structure, cash and liquidity for 3 years of spending in retirement so investors aren't forced to sell their equities or stocks during temporary declines. They can switch their spending to that liquidity position. Clear rules instead of emotional reactions. We teach people that markets will decline 15% a year on average since 1980. That's been the historical average every year, and about 33% 1 year and 5 or 6. So what we do during those declines is we will simply switch spending if we're retired to our cash position. That's a rule, so we don't have to react to the emotional stress during the decline. And then long-term strategies don't require perfect timing. The goal isn't to remove uncertainty. That's impossible. The goal is to make uncertainty survivable. So one bad emotional decision doesn't undo decades of smart planning. In a closing thought, I want to say that smart people don't make bad decisions because they lack intelligence. They make them simply because uncertainty triggers fear, and fear influences behavior. Great investment plans never rely on willpower. They rely on structure. So that's today's fix. Thanks for tuning in, and we look forward to catching you on the next version of Fix It Friday. In the meantime, all of our podcasts, Crazy Wealthy and Fix It Friday, are available on the crazywealthypodcast.com website, as well as Fusion Family Wealth and all your favorite podcast venues.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Crazy Wealthy Podcast. For more insights, resources, and to sign up for our newsletter, visit crazywealthypodcast.com. Until then, stay crazy wealthy.
The previous podcast by Fusion Family Wealth, LLC, Fusion, was intended for general information purposes only. No portion of the podcast serves as the receipt of or as a substitute for personalized investment advice from Fusion or any other investment professional of your choosing. Different types of investments involve varying degrees of risk, and it should not be assumed that future performance of any specific investment or investment strategy, or any non-investment related or planning services, discussion, or content will be profitable, be suitable for your portfolio or individual situation. Neither Fusion's investment advisor registration status, nor any amount of prior experience or success should be construed that a certain level of results or satisfaction will be achieved if Fusion is engaged or continues to be engaged to provide investment advisory services. Fusion is neither a law firm nor accounting firm, and no portion of its services should be construed as legal or accounting advice. No portion of the video content should be construed by a client or prospective client as a guarantee that he or she will experience a certain level of results if Fusion is engaged or continues to be engaged to provide investment advisory services. A copy of Fusion's current written disclosure brochure discussing our advisory services and fees is available upon request or at www.fusionfamilywealth.com.